Before we begin, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because this lesson might change the way you understand wealth forever. They say wealth is not what fills your hands, it's what fills your heart. Ibn Arabi once wrote, "The poor man who knows Allah owns more than the rich man who knows himself." And in that sentence lies the secret energy of wealth, the kind that cannot be counted, only felt. You see, Allah's concept of wealth is not what the world teaches. The world teaches accumulation, Allah teaches alignment. True wealth is energy, the flow of provision, not its storage. The Prophet said, "Wealth is not in having many possessions, but in having a rich soul." Ibn Arabi explained that this richness of the soul is a magnet. When your heart aligns with divine gratitude, sustenance chases you, not the other way around. The first secret is contentment, qana'ah. When you thank Allah for what you already have, you unlock the frequency of increase. Gratitude multiplies what it touches. When you stop complaining, you start attracting. Every alhamdulillah you whisper expands your rizq unseen. Wealth begins not with gain, but with gratitude. The second secret is intention, niyah. Money earned with heedlessness carries no blessing, even if it's much, it disappears. But wealth earned through pure intention becomes light. Ibn Arabi said, "The intention of the heart gives value to the act, not the amount of it." When your goal is service, not status, Allah becomes your partner in provision. The third secret is circulation. The energy of wealth is like water, it must flow to stay pure. The more you give, the more you're entrusted with. Zakat is not loss, it's permission for your sustenance to stay alive. When you hoard, it stagnates, when you share, it breathes. The secret of abundance lies in generosity. The fourth secret is trust, tawakkul. The rich man who relies on his money is poor, but the poor man who relies on Allah is rich beyond measure. When you move through life knowing that provision is written, your anxiety fades. You stop chasing and start receiving. You work, but your trust isn't in the work, it's in the one who blesses it. The fifth secret is purification. Wealth must be clean in how it's earned, in how it's spent, in what it serves. Ibn Arabi said, "Wealth that forgets Allah carries no light." If money makes you arrogant, it's a test. If it makes you grateful, it's a gift. The same coin can elevate or destroy depending on the heart that holds it. And then, the sixth secret, the highest form of wealth, remembrance. When you remember Allah in your abundance, He protects it. When you remember Him in your poverty, He multiplies it. Dhikr is the true currency of barakah, the remembrance that turns simple bread into a feast, and a small home into paradise. The seventh secret, the final one, is service. Real wealth is when what you earn serves others. The Prophet said, "The best of people are those who bring the most benefit to others." When you use what you have to ease the burdens of others, Allah fills your hands faster than you can give. You become a vessel through which His mercy flows. And that's the secret energy of wealth. It's not about how much you own, but how open your heart is to receive and release. When you chase the world, it runs. When you chase Allah, the world follows. Ibn Arabi said, "When the servant understands that sustenance is a trust, not a treasure, his wealth begins to serve him, not enslave him." So remember, true wealth is not counted in gold, but in gratitude. Not measured by numbers, but by light. And when you walk with that awareness, you'll see that everything you own, even the breath in your chest, is already proof that you are rich. And once you begin to live by those 7 secrets, your relationship with wealth transforms completely. You stop chasing what is already written for you, and start aligning with the flow that was always meant to find you. Ibn Arabi said, "Wealth is a river, it flows toward the heart that trusts." That is the essence of divine provision, not in grasping, but in releasing, not in demanding, but in deserving through purity. You start to notice how your earnings, your health, your opportunities, all of them begin to move differently. The same work feels easier, the same money stretches further, and the same life feels fuller. Because barakah is not about numbers, it's the unseen expansion that Allah grants to sincerity. The rich man without dhikr counts coins, the poor man with dhikr counts blessings. And blessings, when counted with gratitude, multiply by their very nature. Ibn Arabi wrote, "What the world calls possession, the knower calls permission, for nothing truly belongs except to the One." So you begin to see your wealth not as ownership, but as responsibility. When you earn, you remember. When you spend, you purify. When you give, you expand. And when you lose, you trust. That is the cycle of divine wealth, flowing like breath, cleansing as it moves, sacred in both gain and loss. And one day, you realize that what you thought was your money was never yours. It was a guest, passing through your hands, leaving behind its blessing or its burden depending on how you treated it. When you gave freely, it stayed in your life through barakah. When you hoarded, it left silently through emptiness. That's when the secret reveals itself completely. Wealth is not what you hold, it's what flows through you. The more you align with remembrance, gratitude, and service, the stronger that flow becomes. And as you raise your hands in prayer, you whisper, "Ya Allah, make my wealth a reflection of your mercy, not my ego. Make me a vessel of giving, not a prisoner of having." And in that moment, the unseen doors open, provision expands, peace follows, and you finally understand the mystery Ibn Arabi spent a lifetime describing. True wealth is light that travels through those who live for something greater than gold. And as that understanding deepens, something within you awakens, a quiet dignity, a noble peace. You stop measuring wealth by the weight of your wallet and start feeling it by the weight of your heart. The world keeps chasing numbers, but you've found a different kind of currency, the one that never loses value, barakah. Ibn Arabi said, "When Allah places light in your sustenance, it will nourish you in ways gold never could." You begin to see how true wealth feeds not just the body, but the soul. You notice that your food tastes sweeter, your sleep feels deeper, and your days flow with calm. Even when your income is the same, your life feels abundant, because the hand of Allah is upon it. That is the unseen energy of provision. It's not about increase, it's about blessing. And soon, your relationship with money becomes sacred. You no longer fear losing it, because you know who provides. You no longer feel guilty for having it, because you know why it was given, to serve, not to enslave. Every dinar that leaves your hand with the name of Allah on your tongue returns multiplied in ways you can't explain. You learn that generosity is not about giving from excess, but about trusting that the one who gave can give again. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The miser holds his coins like chains, the generous holds them like birds." You release, and they return freer, lighter, blessed. And as you walk this path, you start to understand the secret behind every blessing. Allah doesn't test you with wealth to see how much you can earn, He tests you to see how much you can remember Him while you have it. The true proof of faith isn't in giving everything away, it's in never letting what you have take Allah's place in your heart. So you live with balance, working hard, giving freely, spending wisely, thanking constantly. And through it all, you keep whispering, "Ya Razak, you are the giver, I am the vessel. Let everything that enters my hands flow where you wish." That's when you realize, wealth, in its purest form, is not power, it's permission. Permission to heal, to build, to share, to lift others. And the moment your wealth begins to serve creation, Allah begins to serve your soul. And when your wealth begins to serve others, your heart starts to feel something you never expected, expansion. The more you give, the lighter you become. What once felt like loss now feels like freedom. You realize that the purpose of wealth was never to hold it tightly, but to let it circulate with grace. Ibn Arabi said, "The ocean does not keep the rain it receives, it returns it as rivers to the world." That is how divine wealth works, it flows through the generous, not the greedy. You begin to notice how giving changes everything. The hand that gives becomes a door through which mercy enters. The home that feeds others becomes a place where angels dwell. The soul that spends for Allah never runs dry, because Allah Himself becomes its source. You understand now that barakah is not about how much you have, but how much light passes through what you have. And one day, in your quiet reflection, you realize that money itself was never the real test, the test was your heart. Would you remember Allah when your pockets were full? Would you trust Him when they were empty? Every rise and fall of your provision was a conversation between you and your Creator, teaching you that the giver was always greater than the gift. You start walking with humility, because you know wealth doesn't make you higher, it makes you more responsible. You see that the greatest business you can ever run is the one between you and Allah, the trade of sincerity for mercy, of service for eternal reward. Ibn Arabi wrote, "When wealth serves remembrance, it becomes light. When it serves ego, it becomes burden." And so, you keep your wealth light not in its amount, but in its attachment. You work with excellence, spend with intention, and give with love. Then one night, as you raise your hands in gratitude, you whisper, "Ya Allah, keep my heart rich even if my pockets are empty. Let my wealth be in my character, not in my account." And in that moment, you feel it, that sacred current of energy moving through you, silent and radiant. You finally understand that the secret energy of wealth isn't in possession, it's in remembrance. Because when you remember the giver in everything you receive, you stop living for provision and start living in provision. You stop chasing sustenance and realize it's been chasing you all along. And as that remembrance becomes your way of life, wealth begins to follow you like a shadow follows light. You no longer wake up worrying about what you will earn tomorrow, your heart already knows that what's written for you will find you, just as the rain finds the earth. Ibn Arabi said, "The sustenance that belongs to you moves toward you faster than your breath returns to your chest." And you start to feel that truth unfolding every day. You notice that what used to exhaust you now flows easily. Work feels lighter because your intention is cleaner. You're no longer chasing outcomes, you're serving purpose. Every task, no matter how small, becomes a form of worship. You earn with dignity, you spend with balance, and you give with gratitude. That is the divine circulation of wealth movement that keeps the soul alive. And something even deeper happens, you begin to attract not just money, but meaning. People start to come into your life who match your sincerity. Opportunities arise that carry peace, not pressure. You realize that wealth with stress is poverty, but wealth with peace is blessing. You've stopped living in survival mode, now you live in surrender mode. Your heart becomes calm in both gain and loss. When money increases, you say Alhamdulillah. When it decreases, you say Alhamdulillah. Because now you know both are tests, one of gratitude, one of trust. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The believer's heart is like the sky, storms may pass through it, but they cannot stay. And so your peace remains unbroken." Then one day, you understand the final truth of wealth, that it was never about having more, but about becoming more. More generous, more trusting, more conscious. Wealth was only ever a tool for the expansion of the soul. When used right, it elevates you closer to Allah. When misused, it weighs you down. So you choose elevation. You earn without arrogance, you spend without fear, and you live without attachment. Because now you see that the greatest richness isn't what's in your hand, it's what's in your heart. And as you end your prayer each night, You whisper softly, Ya Allah, let my provision carry light, let my giving carry peace, and let my wealth be nothing but a reflection of you. And in that whisper lies the secret Ibn Arabi tried to teach all along. The energy of wealth is not what you gather, it's what gathers around those who remember Allah in every transaction of the heart. And when your heart finally reaches that state, life itself becomes effortless, not because everything is easy, but because everything has meaning. You stop dividing your life into spiritual and material, because you now see that both belong to Allah. Earning, spending, working, resting, all of it becomes worship when your intention is pure. Ibn Arabi said, "The true servant is the one who remembers Allah even when counting coins." You understand that wealth was never a distraction, it was always a mirror. It reflects the state of your heart. You start noticing how every exchange you make, a purchase, a gift, a favor, carries an energy. When done with remembrance, it blesses both sides. When done with heedlessness, it drains. And you realize that the secret energy of wealth is circulation powered by sincerity. Money earned with peace, spent with gratitude, and shared with love becomes like light. The more you give, the brighter it shines. Your eyes open wider. You see that every blessing, even the smallest, is provision. The breath that fills your lungs. The roof above your head. The people who pray for you silently. All of it is rizq, and all of it flows through the same source. You feel like the entire world is whispering, you are already rich. And then comes the greatest shift, you stop trying to attract wealth and start trying to attract barakah. You start asking not for more, but for enough. You learn that enough is the most sacred word in the language of the heart. Because when Allah gives you enough, you live without excess, without emptiness, without fear. Enough is where peace lives. So you begin each day with Bismillah and end it with Alhamdulillah, and that simple rhythm turns your whole life into a prayer. You no longer measure your success by what you accumulate, but by how much closer you feel to Allah after every transaction. And in that serenity, you finally understand the ultimate secret: wealth is not a test of possession, it's a test of perception. To the one who sees only gold, it's a trap. But to the one who sees Allah behind it, it's a door. You smile now, because you've walked through that door. You no longer fear poverty, nor worship wealth. You've learned to live in the middle, where balance becomes beauty, and remembrance becomes reward. And as you bow in sujud, your final whisper carries the only truth that matters. Ya Allah, make me rich in what brings me closer to you, and poor in everything that distances me from you. And in that prayer, the flow of wealth, peace, and light becomes one. And when those words leave your lips, something inside you settles forever. You feel an ease you've never known before, a quiet certainty that everything you need already lives within the decree of Allah. Ibn Arabi said, when the servant understands that Allah is the source of all provision, he stops chasing the reflection and begins to drink from the spring. That is when you stop living from scarcity and start living from abundance, not in your pockets, but in your soul. You walk through life lighter now. The noise of competition fades. The desire to prove, to compare, to collect, all of it dissolves. You realize that wealth isn't a race, it's a rhythm. And when your rhythm matches the divine flow, everything finds you effortlessly: the right people, the right opportunities, the right moments. You no longer run after them, you simply stay aligned. You begin to notice small miracles in your daily life: bills that somehow get paid, doors that open just in time, help that arrives when you need it most. You understand now that rizq isn't about numbers, it's about timing. The provider never delays, he delivers when your heart is ready to receive. You start to live with gratitude that breathes. Every meal becomes a feast, every sunrise feels like provision. Even hardship now feels like hidden wealth, a way for Allah to draw your attention back to Him. You see that the poorest person is not the one without money, but the one without remembrance. And the richest is not the one with gold, but the one who sleeps in peace. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The true treasure is contentment, for it cannot be stolen nor diminished." And you hold that treasure now. You guard it not with locks, but with dhikr. You keep it alive with generosity, you polish it with gratitude, and you protect it with trust. And then one night, as you raise your hands beneath the quiet sky, you whisper, "Ya Allah, you are the owner of all wealth, and I am only its caretaker. Let whatever passes through my hands leave light behind." And the wind seems to carry that prayer upward, weightless, like gold made of faith. Because that is the final secret Ibn Arabi left behind. True wealth is when what you have no longer owns you, and what you give never leaves you. And so the journey ends not with riches, but with realization. You finally see that wealth was never about what you could touch, it was about what you could trust. Every coin, every opportunity, every test of gain and loss was Allah teaching you the language of abundance, not in numbers, but in nearness. Ibn Arabi said, "When the heart sees the giver behind every gift, poverty and wealth become the same." And now you understand, you were never poor, you were being prepared. You look back and realize that everything you once feared losing was never truly yours, and everything you've received since came the moment you stopped clinging. The hand that gives easily never stays empty. The heart that thanks deeply never feels poor. You finally know what barakah feels like. It's not more things, it's more peace. You live simply now, yet your life feels vast. Every act of giving brings expansion. Every moment of gratitude multiplies what you have. Even when nothing changes on the outside, your world keeps growing inside. Because Allah placed within you the greatest form of wealth, contentment. You whisper your final prayer, not out of need, but out of love, "Ya Allah, make my wealth a bridge to you, not a barrier. Let everything you give me bring benefit, and everything you take leave wisdom." And in that moment of surrender, you feel it, the secret energy of wealth that only a few ever discover. The calm of a heart free from fear. The light of provision that never ends. The richness of a soul that needs nothing but its Lord. That is the wealth Ibn Arabi spoke of, the one that cannot be spent, stolen, or measured. The one that begins when the world fades and the remembrance remains. And as your hands lower from dua, the truth rests gently in your heart. You were never meant to chase wealth. You were meant to become it.